Welcome to the Andy Social Podcast. My name is Andy Dowling, and here we are, guys. Episode 100. Yes, 100. Who would have thought, hey, I could get all teary and look back and individually talk about every single episode from the first crappy, horrible intro. You can go and listen to that one. Please don't. Right up till now, but I'll spare you all the pain. Please go back and listen to the previous episodes. They're all on Apple Podcasts and all the Android podcast players. I don't know what they are. Apple, Google Play, who knows? Whatever. They're out there in andysocial.net, so you can go and listen to all the previous episodes. But here we are, episode 100. Amazing. This week's guest is with, I would class as an old friend, because we haven't spoken for a long time. We've known each other for quite a few years now. Johnny D from Doro. First met Johnny, actually, good question, 12 years ago, maybe, in Germany. And that was the dungeon tour that we did with Megadeth. And anyway, we met up at the Bang Your Head Festival. Doro was playing there. Tim from our band had already known the Doro crew from previous tours. Doro had come to Australia, so there was a bit of a relationship there. And I got to meet Johnny for the first time, and I remember trading some Borat references backwards and forwards, and then that was it. And it wasn't until a few years later that Doro, ourselves, and Jaded Heart from Germany got together and did a series of shows throughout Japan, and that was really, really cool. That was back in, I believe, 2010. So that's going on a few years now. But ever since then, we've kept in contact, and Johnny's always watching, I guess, antics from Mark and myself with our Mork and Andy stuff. We sent the guys over some T-shirts, which they wear, and we keep in relative contact. But I thought, you know what, why not? Let's have a chat. And Johnny's been on my radar for a bit for this podcast, and I thought, you know what, episode 100, this is the guy. So if you don't know Johnny, Johnny has a career that spans over 3 decades. He's played in a number of different bands over the years. Doro's been his mainstay for almost, or getting on 25 years. And prior to that, probably most notably with the band Britny Fox, which were huge back in the late 80s. And we cover a lot of this in our chat. We talk about heaps of different things. I did a little bit of a This Is Your Life with Johnny. I tried not to, but then I just got stuck into the timeline of events, and I was just so fascinated with what Johnny was telling me. So I just sort of stuck on that path, and we went through a little bit of that cheesy This Is Your Life with the chronological series of events there. But this is really, really cool. A great insight. There's a lot of stories that I didn't know about, and Johnny was able to give some really cool insights as to, I guess, how things were several decades ago, or a couple of decades ago. I shouldn't make Johnny sound that old. Sorry, Johnny. And then I guess where things are now and what he's involved with now. And it's just really, really cool to see somebody really just sticking to something that they love. And while it can get rough at times and it gets, challenging, and the industry being music and the entertainment industry can change, and it at times can be very challenging, Johnny's just stuck at it and always taken advantage of opportunities as they've come, as he explains. And it's really, really cool. It's inspiring to know that there's people out there that just keep making it happen and don't succumb to, I guess, the mundane everyday life that many of us sometimes get trapped into. So listen to this, enjoy it, take some notes as well, especially for a lot of you guys. I know there's a few young guys that play in bands and they're new to the whole music world. Definitely get some pen and paper out and take some notes here, because there's some really, really cool insights and some great lessons to be learnt, even though the industry's changed quite a bit over the years. So pay attention. But enough of my rambling. Hooray for episode 100. Please enjoy this episode with Johnny D.
Hello.
Hello.
Hey.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
Wow.
Good day.
Good day, mate. Good evening.
Yeah, right? Good whatever the fuck it is. I have no idea.
How's technology, hey?
Yeah, right? Pretty awesome once,
It's better than a normal phone call.
It sounds pretty damn good.
Yeah, there you go. Oh, well, it's only the very best quality for my podcast.
Oh, yeah, dude. How's that going?
Good. Yeah, good. I've had to work my way up to personalities like yourself, so
Oh,
it's been a long time coming.
oh boy, I hate to see who you had before me. Holy crap. You got a
Oh.
long way to go, buddy.
Well, I would assume that it's a bit of a privilege to be speaking to the Andy of Mork and Andy as well.
Yes, absolutely. I almost was going to wear my T-shirt, but I couldn't find it. So,
That's all right, you're forgiven.
yeah.
How's Philly?
It's going good. The weather's quite nice. It's a little bit of a late summer vibe going on. It's been pretty nice, and really haven't had much time here to do anything. I just got back in town, so just kind of hanging with the family a bit before I'm off again. So
Yeah, because you got another Euro tour in about a month's time.
yep, yeah, a little bit of Doro stuff. Germany, not too far spread out, but we usually do those winter tours almost every year now. It's pretty consistent, pretty good time for us to get out there and do it,
Is that the best?
So those are always fun.
Is that the best time to tour, especially in Germany around those colder months because there's not a great deal of competition?
Yeah, I would say that's probably the top reason, but I can't say for other bands. I only know for us, it works out really well. People are enjoying that time of year. It's a really cool thing. The German, holiday season, Christmas markets, and all that, Glühwein, and the whole
It's pretty cool.
heavy metal hang.
I remember I saw that you guys are playing in Wolfsburg on one of the dates, and I've been there once a few years ago, and it was around the beginning of December. It was freezing cold, and I rocked up there on a Sunday, and I don't know if it's the same across most of Germany, but everything just seems to shut down on a Sunday. And it was just like a wasteland. There was just nothing happening at all. I go, oh my God, does anything happen here? And and then when I saw your tour dates and you're playing there, I thought, oh geez, where do you guys play there? Because it's just such a small little place. But I guess every little nook and cranny in Germany, you guys have probably played now.
Yeah, I think we're big on the tent scene and the small villages and whatever. I mean, it's pretty cool because people just come out of. It's amazing when you see, even if you're driving through a small so-called village or whatever, and you see some rock posters for a show that might be coming up. I mean, people literally still just come out of the woodwork for not only us, but any rock or metal gig, or for that matter, just get out and support live music, or but it is kind of funny because we do kind of get into every little nook and cranny, as you said. But yeah, it works well. It's a good time.
I think it's there's definitely a culture difference with, well, I mean, we can focus on Germany, but a lot of places in Europe compared to, or at least from my experience here in Australia, and I'm sure it's the same in North America, where a little bit of rain or the weather might be slightly bleak, and then people are going, I can't be bothered going out. But but for parts of Europe, I mean, they're just so dedicated to the music and they're just used to the weather. That's just it's not a deterrence at all.
Yeah, I don't think so. I mean, it's thousands of years of practice of just getting out there and getting stuck in it. So I think the modern Germans or whatever don't really seem to give a toss about it. They're, as you've seen at Wacken and the outdoor festivals, when it's middle of summer and pissing down with rain for 3 days straight, nobody seems to even bother, or giving it a second thought. It's just kind of like, it is what it is, and let's get down to business.
I think if we had an equivalent in Australia, I think most people would just go home. They just wouldn't be able to put up with it. Everyone's just too weak here, and we're so lucky with pretty good weather overall most of the year. We don't get really sort of disgusting weather. I mean, it gets pretty hot, but it's still pretty good. And
Yeah.
we're pretty good overall, but yeah, anything that's slightly uncomfortable, then we're quick to whinge about it.
Yeah, I'm a pretty big whinger myself, you know. I'm not not the biggest mud swimmer, or I'm not into, even as a younger fan or whatever, I just wasn't brought up with, outdoor festivals were really not, they were kind of like just, oh, you go see someone at a baseball stadium or whatever, and it's, they would even cancel shows if it rained, So, I mean, a lot has changed, but yeah, I wasn't brought up to really withstand those types of elements, and I'm definitely a wimp when it comes to standing outside too long and, getting a chill or whatever. I'm just like total wimp.
You and me both.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a good segue because you're talking about your younger self. So,
Yep.
I went through and did the chronological history of Johnny D, and I thought I won't be bland and boring and go from day dot to now, because I'm sure you've talked about a bunch of different stuff over the years on repeat. But one of the things that I found really interesting, and I couldn't really see a great deal about it, was so going right back to the beginning. And you had, and from what I can see, there's a whole bunch of different bands that you played in over the years. And one of the first bands was World War III. And then there was a transition between that, and you did a release with them, and I think that was in Philly. And then you went to the UK and played with Wasted for a while. And it was only a short period of time. But that transition from growing up and everything being sort of, I guess, in the United States, but being on the East Coast in Philly, but then suddenly going to the UK, was that the first time you'd ever been overseas at that stage?
No, I had been to, my mom was born in Italy, so I did visit Italy as a kid, but totally different, thing. I wasn't really, I was into music, but I hadn't been playing seriously or anything like that. And, my family comes from a seaside town on the Adriatic coast, so it was like more of a holiday vibe, So when you get a few more years on and all of a sudden you're, getting very serious about wanting to be a real musician, or at least a pro, or, and you end up in the UK, it's kind of like, holy shit, this is where the fucking Beatles and Led Zeppelin. So that was, I had only been pretty much to Italy before that. So that wasn't really like any preparation for landing in England and playing with some of my musical heroes, the guys from UFO, which that was a huge band for me. And that whole opportunity was just a mind blower for me at that time, before all the internet stuff and just really knowing really what was out there, I mean, you could just imagine what it was like for, for me at that time. I was like 21 or something, and landing in Heathrow and getting driven to Wales, like way out in North Wales, out almost on the sea. And this just like in the middle of a fucking cow pasture, a sheep field. These guys were renting a house and just like rehearsing in there, and I was like, blown away by it all. But it was quite an eye opener, really. But it was pretty amazing for that time, because like I said, I didn't really know what to expect or what was out there or where I was really, what was going to happen when I got there. But luckily, it all worked out really great.
How did you get approached when you were in Philly? Was one of the guys from Wasted over in the United States, or was there a mutual friend or something that's directed you to them or to their attention?
Yeah, it was both kind of. I'd been buying Kerrang magazine like crazy, and it was like I think it was bi-weekly or once a month over here, and so I'd run down the local record store and grab this magazine and just be amazed by all the stuff that was going on in the rock and metal world, and especially from that kind of vantage point from the UK, and not like the typical crap magazines that we had, which only cover sort of like the top of the top, you know. These guys were writing about like everything all the time, and it was really gave you like a scope of really what was possible. They would do, you know, pieces on bands that basically had like a cassette demo tape, or, you know, things that fell into their hands that were worth note. And so I was reading that religiously. And one day I saw an ad in the front, which basically Paul Chapman was looking for a keyboard player, rhythm guitar type position, you know, like Paul Raymond or Neil Carter had done in UFO. And I kind of ran to my buddy Jimmy DeLella's place, and I said, dude, this is like crazy. Paul Chapman is looking for basically you know, you got to go to this gig, man. And he's like, oh, okay. You know, so we checked it out. There was an address and a phone number. So, you know, we were like, what do we do now? You know, and I guess we type up a resume. Like, nobody knows what the fuck we're supposed to be doing. So, you know, it's like we put all this stuff down, and I think he mailed it off, and actually Paul called him up, and he ended up going down there and getting the gig, after, you know, to shorten the story a bit. But anyway, he went to England before I did, and actually made a record with Waysted. And you know, that record, The Good, the Bad, the Waysted, was on Music for Nations. And after the record came out, I think they were gearing up for a tour, and Jerry Shirley from Humble Pie Fastway had been playing drums with them and on that record, and he apparently didn't want to tour. So they were like, okay, now what? And of course, my best buddy was like, I know the guy, you know, so he kind of threw the ball back in my court, and they trusted him and basically flew me over there like sight unseen, just on a recommendation and some photos and like a handwritten resume again. Really crazy stuff to look back on it all now. But yeah, I ended up going over and playing with them and getting the gig. It was pretty wild.
It's so funny now, because I mean, I guess I'm a little bit younger than you, but I saw pre-internet, and obviously we're living into the digital world with the internet just completely controlling everything these days.
Yeah.
And so I remember going to, you know, leaving home and telling the parents that I'm going to go and play with some friends down the street or whatever. And if you get stuck somewhere, you just have like a few cents or a few coins to put in the payphone to call somebody. You'd never have a phone on you. No one knew where you were. You just had to tell people,
right,
and they would just trust you. And when you're telling Matt about finding an ad in a magazine and then having to work out, like, handwrite a resume and then a phone number, and it's just so, like, the further we get into this whole digital age, the more ridiculous all these stories are going to sound in hindsight. I know. It's just incredible that because it's not an instantaneous thing. You would have had to send it off and then just sit and wait for however long it would have taken. Wait for the
phone to ring, you know.
Yeah.
And whatever.
And then were you guys still living at home at that stage?
Yeah, I mean, we were both still living with our parents. And, you know, Jimmy went down there first to Florida and kind of did the whole, holy shit, I'm playing with Paul Chapman from UFO, and they got to open a few gigs. You know, Paul was cashing in his favors. You know, they got to open for Ted Nugent and this thing and that one. And, you know, what eventually happened was Paul was working on a solo thing at that time, so he couldn't get a deal. And he went over to England to basically try to work some of his better connections over there, trying to shop his solo project, which again could have been done by email, you know, but it had to be like a flight to England and carrying a bunch of cassette tapes over there and, you know, going around door to door and banging on, you know, a couple labels, or, you know, so he bumps into Pete Way, and Pete's like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm shopping my solo thing. And he's like, we need a guitar player for Wasted. So like all this stuff was just kind of happening so organically, which is, and even more so for us, my friend and I at that time, because we weren't already in the business. It wasn't like popping down the pub and running into, David Coverdale or something like that. I mean, we were literally like nowhere,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it was a great opportunity that turned out to be such an amazing learning experience for me. I cut my teeth with some of the real pioneers of rock and metal.
What was, so I mean, you were with Wasted for about a year-ish, 2 years, possibly?
Yeah, I think top to bottom, like 2 years from the joining and pre-production writing, and then recording a record, and then doing a whole tour with Maiden and a couple other bands and stuff like that. So pretty much one cycle of like a record's life.
Would have been a complete whirlwind of a couple of years. Like, especially as you said before, you cut your teeth in that period of time, going from just sort of a local guy in Philly, and then going over to the UK and just getting thrown in the deep end in a way.
Oh man, I mean, my first gig was basically a showcase for EMI. Steve Harris was really championing the band at that point. He was such a huge Pete Way fan and a friend, and wanted to help Pete kind of get back up there, because they had been on an independent, and Steve was like, I'm going to hook you up with EMI. And so, my first gig ended up being like the live showcase to seal the deal that, these guys can actually play and blah, blah, blah. But it was at the Marquee, which is like, if you go to London at that time and you play the Marquee, you're like basically have crapped in your trousers pretty heavily, especially being from America and never even playing anything larger than like the local dive bar. So that was unbelievable, man. And then, at the end of the gigs, Harry comes up and Dickinson gets up, and we do like a couple UFO tunes, and it was like a sold out thing and just ridiculous. It was all just such a cool way to like, kick off a career in music,
Man, no pressure.
No, not at all. But just sort of like, not even just so much adrenaline and like, you didn't even have time to consider failure or, screwing it up. It was kind of all just going.
You just had to just
on
keep
autopilot.
moving. Yeah.
Yep.
What were the big things that you learnt in those 2 years with them? Because obviously, as you said, you've gone from one extreme to the other. But were there certain things or things that you look back now that you certainly learnt some lessons in that period of time?
Absolutely. I think one of them was, how to get in a room and actually like create with people and I mean, I had done some writing and arranging with a couple of the bands I was with before, but I mean, this was like a real deal, like a band with a budget rents a house in the countryside and goes in there and just like basically works on music 24/7, and then goes into a real studio and makes a record for a major label. So I was learning all that kind of stuff. And also the live thing, I think was, Pete in particular, such a maniac on stage, but always very in a calculated way. I mean, if you at that point, UFO had pretty much done almost everything, stadiums, pub gigs, everything, and they just honed their shit down to a science. And Pete taught us a lot about how to work a crowd, even more so in like a support band situation, and just getting out there and really I don't know, just kind of getting people, just really entertaining them from the minute you hit the stage till the end. You could see this building of like, from like maybe this kind of look is like, who the fuck are these guys and who do they think they are, to like, holy shit, they're really fucking great. And by the end, they're singing and clapping and chanting along, and that whole, I had never experienced the European kind of concert audience thing where people are like clapping along, you know, football stadium type chants and singing full on, you know, just really, really into this event, you know, almost like a football game or something like that. I mean, there's like really going for it. So I learned a lot about that type of, you know, putting on a show and really not just prancing around and pulling moves and whatnot, but really like the, you know, the thought that went into a set list, which songs, you know, this tempo, this is a great opener, that is this, you know, where we knock them over the head midway, and then, you know, pacing and all that kind of stuff. I really did learn a lot about on that. And then, of course, we went out with Maiden, and that kind of took it all to a new level of, you know, oh shit, now you got to not only entertain an audience as a support band, but you've got to entertain a fucking Iron Maiden crowd, you know. And that was like, you know, we did a fucking bang up job at it too, you know. And yeah, I think a lot of people that saw that tour always remembered, you know, that, oh yeah, the opening band was great, you know. So, and that's kind of the old school work ethic. I think I learned that firsthand from those guys, some seasoned vets, you know.
Is it, especially with that tour with Maiden, I mean, you guys would have only had, what, a 20-minute, 30-minute set?
I think probably 30 to 40, maybe 45 at the most, when we hit the States, you know.
Yeah, that's not too bad. I was just thinking, I know just from our experience over the years, when you do a support set, and it's the same thing as what you said, you really got to be calculated, because you're not playing for your fan base, you're playing for somebody else's. So you don't want to stuff them around or waste their time. You need to get in there and make sure that you're approaching the set in the right way that's going to keep their attention for that period of time. Otherwise, as soon as they start to drift off, that's when well, not so much probably these days, but probably years ago, the projectiles would come out, and and the booze and the chants for the headliner.
Right, or the you know, off to the beer stand kind of thing, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, but you know, even with those short sets, you know, it almost ups your game a bit, and having you know, really cut out the fat, you know. So if you can nail your best tunes and really, you know, put them all in that short of a set, you know, you kind of got your work half cut out for you already. So you really just have to, you know, swing and hit it, you know, instead of miss.
Absolutely. And you would have had a few. Did you have any absolute train wrecks along the way, especially like touring with Maiden? I mean, they're known for being pretty diehard. Yeah.
Just in contrast, the Maiden thing was just, you know, it was like they laid it out there for us, you know, and we didn't fuck it up. But on the other side of things, we also did like a 8-week tour with Status Quo in Europe, which was, to me, like, I'm thinking like, really? Do we want to, like, are they even any, like, are they big? You know, like, they weren't ever big in America, you know? Yeah. So I learned, you know, about many bands that were, you know, quite huge in you know, in Europe and the UK in particular. But we went out with them, and it was like the mismatch of the century. You know, it was completely, talk about diehards, but in a completely boneheaded way. Whereas Maiden were like, okay, that audience was like, fucking entertain us. You know, the Quo audience was like, piss off like immediately, because we don't even want to fucking sit through anything you want to fucking say or play. So we were up there like, you know, just dying to try and work our magic or whatever and get over on this crowd. But, you know, I got to say, like 95% of the time it just did not work. So really we had to do this whole tour literally like dreading it every night, you know? So there was like, that's when the projectiles came and the, you know, cups full of piss or beer or whatever. I mean, I remember a gig in Belgium, I think in particular, where, you know, Chapman got hit with one too many cups of beer or piss or whatever it might have been. And he actually had like a sort of a pistol, but it was like the barrel was like welded closed. It was just kind of a dummy thing, you know, but he actually went off stage, grabbed this gun and pointed it at this dude in the front row. and the guy fucking went white, man. And he literally, that was the end of him throwing shit for the night, you know, but that was pretty fucking funny, man.
Man, you couldn't do that these days, that's for sure.
Right. I know, man.
Wow.
You'd be locked up like completely within a second.
Oh, incredible.
Yeah.
So it was only a couple of years with them, and the band just disbanded at that stage. They just broke up. For what was the main reason for that? Was it just wanting to do other things, or just not quite gelling?
Well, we ended up in LA after the Maiden tour, and we had, you know, hopes that we were going to jump on another tour. We were on Capitol, and we had heard rumors that we might get a slot opening for Heart or this band or that band, and I was like, okay, so we're just hanging out there, enjoying the California sun for a few weeks. And then one day I just get a call and it's like, yeah, Tonka's fired. And I'm like, what? You know, so they fired Paul for whatever reason. I don't know why. But then from that point, I thought, like, why would you fire one of the guys with the, you know, the biggest pedigree, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, that was kind of the thing. And then it became this guitar player search, and they wanted a younger guy. And then I heard rumors that we were going to lose the deal because the record didn't sell. So it all just started going bonkers. And then that was when I got a call from the Britny guys.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you probably wanted to segue into that, but it literally happened at that point. I was in LA wondering if Wasted was going to continue, and it looked like it wasn't going to, for those reasons. Even though Pete, you know, wanted to, we did hire a new guitar player, and we did do some gigs out there, and we were, you know, going to kind of continue, but there was nothing really available, you know, like the label packed it in on us, and Pete was going to go back to England with this guitar player and try to, you know, get some stuff together. And I just wasn't up for it, especially because I got a call from those guys and they were like, hey man, we're getting signed and, you know, we want you to come play with the band. So,
and for getting that call from the Britny guys, did they sniff out that things weren't right with your band, or was it just a case that just because, you know, you guys knew of each other or knew each other, that they had an opportunity and then wanted to reach out to you and thought of you?
It was it wasn't because they knew anything. They literally had asked me maybe, I don't know, a year previously or 6 months, I forget. But when Tony Destra, the original drummer, was killed in a car accident, the Britny guys reached out to me then, and this was right mid-swing of Wasted, you know, arena tours and all that, and I was like, you know, sorry dudes, I can't give this up, you know. And so they got another friend to take the position, and then when they started to negotiate with Columbia, you know, maybe a year or, like I said, 8 months or something down the road, one of their stipulations was that they wanted the drummer replaced, you know, which is kind of, you know, sort of happened to a bunch of bands at that stage, which is always really unfortunate and kind of sad. But then you have your mates like sitting there, you know, weighing this option of like, okay, do we kick our friend out or do we like sign a fucking record deal, you know? And it's kind of like never, you know, it'd be pretty rare if somebody said, no, we won't take the deal, we're just going to continue the way we are. So that's what went down. They had another opportunity or another reason to switch and call me again. So the second time around, I didn't pass it up.
No, absolutely. And I mean, obviously, right place, right time, and
Yeah.
yeah, and then go from there. So, as far as comparing, because I mean, I just remember when we met, or we had met previously, but when we toured together in Japan, it's like 7 odd years ago now.
Yeah.
I remember being in a bus and we were traveling through Tokyo and we drove past the Tokyo Dome and you made a comment like, "Oh yeah, I remember playing there once," and we're on a and we laughed and we're on our way to the venue in Tokyo or whatever, or we're leaving Tokyo to go somewhere else, and I just sort of thought, and I knew that you'd played in Britny Fox, but I just thought, really, like you played there? And then I think you'd mentioned that I think you did a show there with Bon Jovi and whatnot. But over the years, I've sort of went back and listened to a lot of the older stuff, and I've got some of the records now, and I just didn't realize the popularity of how far or how much popularity Britny Fox was able to get in that period of time, especially when you came on. Because I think around that stage, had they already, or you just mentioned they were about to get signed, but they had stipulations of who was going to be in the band at that stage. So you really came in at a sweet spot for the band. They got this deal, and you guys are ready to go.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, it was literally fly home to Philly, jump in a rehearsal room, once again, like, okay, check, can the guy play? Is he an asshole? No. Okay, great. And then off we go. Like the studio was booked. There was a few, I think we did some local gigs, kind of like going away type of thing, but it was amazing timing. And I think they kind of dug the fact that, like, they had something to, because I remember all the early Britney articles that came out always said, like, Johnny D from Wasted and blah, blah, blah. So there was a little bit more for the old publicity, list, But yeah, it was pretty, I mean, we did have a pretty, pretty good run there for right from the get-go. It was like out of the gates, boom. It wasn't a lot of they had kind of paid some dues. I wouldn't even say it was a scenario where the band was around for 10 years. I mean, even from the time when they started playing, day one to the time where they got a deal, I mean, it really wasn't that long of a process. So they had their shit together, and I think the label saw that as an advantage, because a lot of bands, get signed and then it's all this question about, okay, do we want to keep the name, and are the songs up to par, and blah, blah, blah. Britny Fox was pretty much like plug and play. Even when we hired a producer, like they did literally made so few changes in the songs for the first record that, it was like, this is what it is. This is how it is. This is what works. And that's kind of what's going to stay that way,
So it would have only been a matter of months between you officially joining the band and then that self-titled album coming out. It wouldn't have, or at least being recorded anyway.
Yeah, it was recorded a few months after I joined, and then it was released, maybe under a year later. Mm-hmm. And, we were out gigging again, and we landed, we actually had a good fan base that was really calling and writing all the magazines. And, the one cool thing they did have at that time, which was before internet stuff, was a really good underground fan club, which had bought, like, tape trading and buying the demos by mail and writing magazines and really, pushing the band out there. So once we got signed to a major, we really kind of took our little fan base and blew it up. They really went to work for us, like the little ant colony that they were. They were just going for it, So yeah, we were lucky, man, but we also had, we had something that was right for the time.
Did you guys go out and do headline shows straight away, or was it something that you jumped on a tour with another band that was pushing an album?
Yeah, we did. All of our headline shows pretty much were like East Coast at that time. We would do runs. The band even did runs up to like Connecticut and Maine and stuff like that before they had actually signed a deal. So when we had first signed and had the record in the can, we went out and did some headline shows, some small theaters and just club stuff. And then we got on MTV, and that changed everything. We got, that just lit a fucking, stick of dynamite off, and that was it. It really kind of blew up at that point.
What were the big differences? Obviously, you can see that the band's getting more exposure in different places, and I'm assuming that the show opportunities are getting better. But I mean, I couldn't even begin to imagine what the buzz would be around, because I think that album ended up going gold. Did it go gold?
It did, yeah. Just shy of platinum, actually. At that
right.
time, it went over since, but we, yeah.
What was what were some of the things that you guys experienced at that stage, and was it a completely different experience to Wasted? Because obviously Wasted were doing pretty well over in Europe, but but I mean, this just seems to be a completely different world altogether.
It was, because again, we, first of all, I think the biggest change was that all of a sudden I was like the well-known guy in the band, you know what I mean? And it wasn't like I was star of the band or the writer or the front man, but it was like, okay, this dude's been around, and that's cool. But I mean, I also felt like part of something. I felt like an equal part, and I was, it was like 4 guys who basically had no name really. It wasn't like, oh, it's Pete Way's band, Wasted, it was Britny Fox, and it was all brand new. So I felt different in that sense, that I was in a band of my peers. I mean, I grew up with these guys mostly and knew them. We were all from Philly. It was, a little bit of a gang mentality, we obviously had our differences, but all for the common goal. And at that time, when everything was just like, we could almost do no wrong, there was really very few problems or disagreements. It was just like, okay, this is the next step, and we go, we take that step, and here we are, and now we go there, and it just kind of happened.
What sort of other acts were you touring with at the time, especially going out on the road and doing sort of package tours? Because I think you guys would have done stuff with Poison, or I'm just trying to think of some of the other guys that were doing reasonably well around that period of time and towards the late 80s. Yeah,
we did those few like that short headline run right before the record dropped, and we would play with like say Extreme open for us, for example, when we played up in Massachusetts. So it was like, okay, so these guys are like the local, they were what we were to Philly. So it was like, it made sense for us to kind of like package up on little, even one-offs, but then, like I said, MTV first video, Long Way to Love came out. So at that point, it was like, boom, we got onto Dial MTV. All of a sudden, we had thousands and thousands of actual fans, like almost, it seemed overnight, but it wasn't that long, but it wasn't overnight, of course. But it like, that was the impact of MTV. Like, you could literally be played on there one day, and the next day, like, your record's all of a sudden like on fire. So that those plays on MTV got us the Poison tour, and once again, that was another master stroke for us to go from playing, small shows to being on a fucking arena tour, So we drove up to like Milwaukee or somewhere Wisconsin, and on the way we played like our last little club shows, headlining, and those were all insane because now we were an MTV band, and there was just like insanity in these small, like 800 capacity clubs or pubs, small theaters and whatnot. And then when we literally got to Wisconsin, we were a support band on a fucking arena tour. So we were just like, holy shit, like, is this dream going to end, and then that kind of started a whole nother snowball effect. So that's kind of how it went.
That's incredible. And how much touring abroad outside of North America did the band do? Was the popularity sort of, I assume that the US would have been sort of the main market for you guys, but did you guys have an impact in Europe, especially with you having some prior sort of exposure over there?
We did a little bit. I don't know if we really understood to what degree or, but if you look, like we looked kind of around at our peers, and it was almost seemed like nobody's going over there, like Poison, for example, they were killing business wise in America. They would just go around and around and around, and they were building at that time. And I don't think anybody really wanted to, hey guys, I have an idea. Let's go to Europe and like lose money to try and build it up over there. Or can we stay here and just like make $1 billion, So everybody was a little bit, it was kind of like where everybody wanted to be, and I think we got some cool exposure because of our Kerrang connection. We had, those guys were really one of the first we were one of the first bands to have a cover on Kerrang without actually having a record out. So we had like Dave Reynolds and a couple of the guys there really pushing us, and even though they took the piss out of us like every chance they could get, they still, we got exposure through them. And I think they really enjoyed the glamminess of the band, because all those 70s glam fans from, the Sweet and the Slades and all the bands that were huge in England, you had these older cats that were writing for Kerrang who were still into that stuff. And they were like, these guys are great. So we did get some, a lot of feedback from Europe, but we didn't really get to go over there until the second record.
Yeah. And
we were concentrating on America as we really kind of needed to,
That's it. And the size of the United States anyway, and the amount of different individual markets there. You could just be touring there for an entire career, as you said before, with other bands. Like for some people, there's just no need to look anywhere else because there's just that many towns and cities to play in.
Yeah, and you don't, there's only so much time in a year or in the cycle of a record where you can really take advantage of that. So I think, unfortunately, the other parts of the world kind of got neglected, and now I think that's probably why there's such a resurgence in all those other places now, because you guys got fucked back in the day.
That's it, absolutely. When did you guys go to Japan? So I'm curious as to hear a little bit about, because you mentioned it when we were over there.
Yeah.
But doing Tokyo Dome, which is pretty iconic, was that a one-off show? Because was that with Bon Jovi?
It was the Big Egg show, the big New Year's Eve thing they do. So it was a Sony Heat Beat event or so. It was fucking massive. Tokyo Dome, 50,000 people indoors. And we were on Sony. So it was like a no-brainer. Like, which one of our bands from America is doing good? Okay, let's get them on here. So it was us. It was us, Kingdom Come, Rat, and Bon Jovi. Wow. And it was a huge, New Year's Eve gig, and this show was literally like the fucking Super Bowl. I never experienced anything like it in my life. You know how Japan goes for it and everything they do, and they certainly held nothing back at that time. And we were lucky enough to go over. It was an amazing opportunity, and it was also a little bit mind-boggling, because because we went literally over there for a week. We did press for a week. We played the Tokyo Dome gig, and then that was it. We went back home, and like Rat and Bon Jovi went off and did like 4, 6, 8 other shows in Japan, and we were like, hey, what about us, you know? So to this day, I never understood, and we literally never fucking went back. We played the biggest show in Japan that year, and we never went back again to play any headline shows. So I don't know if that was a label thing, if it was a fucking management cock up, or if we just sucked so bad that nobody wanted us back. I really don't fucking know, but that will haunt me forever. But you know, that if you're going to go to Japan once in your life and fucking play a gig, that was the most awesome fucking gig that could have ever been played, you know?
Yeah, I think there's very few people that could top that one. So I think you've done reasonably well with that.
Yeah, and I did go back, only, you know, got to spend it with you guys and with Doro, and just, you know, then I could like point out the window and go, yeah, I fucking played there, dude.
I think we were playing that venue in Tokyo, and it was just it was a slight contrast to the big Tokyo Dome. So, and many years had passed since then as well. So it was I've always remembered that over the years, and then you making that comment, and I thought, oh, I've got to pick your brain about that later on down the track.
Yeah, it was good, man. I mean, it was insane. It was, you can imagine what at that time, that was like the last day of 1988, you know, into 89. So, I mean, Bon Jovi were fucking absolutely the most massive of massive, you know?
Yeah.
And to play that kind of gig with them was pretty cool, you know? We just thought like, wow, you know, like this could never end. Like, this is just the beginning, you know?
It's pretty crazy. And you mentioned before about how much MTV was dictating, you know, the popularity of bands. Were they pretty much the reason why they destroyed a lot of bands as well, just with the shift in taste and picking up, you know, different genres of music, being grunge at the time and whatever? And we're flicking through a few more years, but just what you said before made me sort of think, oh, well, if they help bands to that extent, then they can obviously, you know, make them go away very quickly as well.
Yeah, I don't know that it was a conscious thing. I mean, it was just kind of a product of the, you know, the medium or the time, you know. It was just basically like they just kept rolling with whatever was good. And then, you know, maybe one day it was like, oh, Bon Jovi has a black and white video, you know, and it's like, oh, that's fucking awesome. Maybe like we should go in that direction. So I remember that before they actually started killing off the 80s bands, they started to kind of like funnel them down this like commercial, you know, cattle chute kind of thing. And it was like, okay, now you have to have a fucking black and white video with a concept, and it's got to be this and it's got to be that, or we're not playing it. So we really realized that like, fuck, you know, we got to play along with this, you know, bullshit game somehow. And then you start like second guessing yourself or doing things for other reasons besides what you think is cool or what your fans think is awesome. And that's when we started to dress down. We started to, you know, write a little differently. I know Dean felt the pressure big time as far as like, you know, not to sing all screechy anymore and to write songs that were going to get on the radio. And though we were always like, fuck it, dude, you know, AC/DC's done it for fucking their whole career. Like, we don't have to change, man. We can keep doing what we do. But, you know, that's when the whole thing starts to be pulled at, you know, like cotton candy or some shit. Everybody wants their, you know, their say or their opinion and their part, and you got to do this and do that. Next thing you know, you're standing there with a fucking paper cone in your hand and there's nothing on it anymore. Yeah.
I guess at that time, like in sort of mid to late 80s, where a lot of that sort of, you know, glam rock was massive, I mean, a lot of the bands, no doubt, would have just had everything at their fingertips. Like as you said before, that whole is this a dream and how long is this going to last? And then
Mm-hmm.
when the labels turn around and say, you need to tweak this, change this, and whatnot, and it's a gradual thing, you're more or less just you're blindly accepting that and just going for it because you just, I guess, it might get to a point where you go, I just want to do whatever it takes to not get away from this experience. Like I want this to
Oh yeah,
continue. Yeah. So,
yeah. I mean,
and for some
that's
bands, they had a few more years of longevity because of it, and other bands just didn't.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many variables when it comes down to that thing, and I could sit here and make analogies like probably until your ears burn off. But yeah, it really was like, what do we do? And we have to follow this, path, or we're not going to get that. If we don't do A, B, and C, we're not going to, be able to really sustain this. And and then you add to that all the internal pressures and external stuff from other areas, and then it just became sort of like, holy shit, like we're really okay, there's a couple holes in the boat, and we don't have enough fingers, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So now what are we doing? But I think and then you have everybody's individual opinions of why it started to sink a bit, but I mean, our label pulled us off the road. We had a gold record. We were at 800,000 units. We had 3 videos out. We stalled a bit on our power ballad, so the thought was to like come back with a kick-ass rock track and maybe like spark the record and boot it over platinum or whatever. But label was like, no, we got to make another record. And so we were, like we were saying earlier, we were following instead of leading, and then it just kind of became like, what the hell?
Yeah.
Couldn't really do anything about it anymore.
Well, when it got to that point where everyone sort of went their separate ways, and I'm trying to segue, not being as disjointed as possible, but
Yeah.
So it got to the point where, and this is like early '90s, where everyone sort of went their separate ways, and then you got the opportunity to obviously go over to Doro, and you had somebody.
Yep.
Oh well, no, there's another band in between. I think it was
There was a band called Mariah, which was really like, there's been quite a bit made of that, but it was really just kind of a stepping stone off. I literally left the last Britny gig and went to Minneapolis just to kind of jump onto that thing to help my buddies out and see what, kind of take a look and see if I could fit into a real AOR kind of super commercial band like that, and it was like the timing for those guys couldn't have been worse because they were, they were really writing some amazing songs, which would have been fucking killer, like, 5 years previous. But, next thing you know, it was like Nirvana, ground zero. And that was that. So.
But you got an inroad to Doro through one of those guys?
I did. The same guy as the Wasted thing was Jimmy DeLella, and Jimmy had gotten the Mariah gig through John Bon Jovi and Snakes, Sabo from Skid Row, they were all buds. And John said, I've been writing with this band, I met them up in Minneapolis, and I think you'd be a good fit for them. So why don't you go up there and, do your thing and see where it goes. So Jimmy, pretty much was like, well, hell yeah, if you're behind it, I'm in,
Yeah.
So he went up there and ended up fucking playing the bar scene, and John just was like, see ya, bye, and never did anything, because he probably felt like, well, shit, what am I going to do with a band that, is super commercial when the whole industry is blowing up? So both Jimmy and I did that, as long as possible. And then he actually landed the Doro gig back at home before I did. Doro was in America auditioning some players, and he got the gig playing keys and guitar, and almost really weird, man. It was almost just like the Wasted thing. Like, he went and did it before I did, and he came back home and he was like, yeah, dude, there might be a drum position opening up, and I was like, really? And that'd be fucking awesome, and then it actually happened, so it was pretty wild, that this guy that I pretty much grew up with ended up having such a hand in, the two of the major gigs that I've had in my life,
It's crazy. And when you went over and started doing shows with Doro, what was that another contrast altogether? You got a front woman in the band, so this is the first time, German as well, and so was there culture things to consider? Not so much personally with Doro herself, but I guess just being a band that's more or less got their roots in Germany and in Europe, as far as their approach and the way that they do things. Was there a lot of differences that you had to get used to when you did join?
It wasn't too bad. I mean, at that time, the funny thing was that she still had like a hold on her thing. Like, she was sort of modeled in the U.S. kind of business-wise thing. She had actually moved to Manhattan for a while, and she had the polygram thing going on, and a manager that was like pretty much international. So I didn't feel so much like, oh God, now I'm stuck in Germany with some band, or, it was all maybe the language barrier at times, but she spoke perfect English. The manager did. Everybody around there was like, we were still sort of in this protective bubble. So, and, there was still money flowing, and there was like gigs were full. And so I literally went from like, what the hell is going on in America with this style of music that I'm in and that I love, and now it seems to be over and my career's finished, to going over there and being like, oh wait, no, I'm not. Like, there's still shit going on over here. These people still like this stuff. They don't really care as much about what's going on trend wise. They were a little behind in a good way. So I felt real comfortable, and she's an absolute sweetheart and just, real super dedicated. And I kind of like, just jumped in and did it. And then on stage realized like, holy shit, man, like this chick has a thing going on with her fans. Like, I don't know if I've really experienced this before. She's like, got this bond, and they're fucking out there crying and stuff, and I'm like, what the hell is, like, I didn't know what the hell that was. I was just used to going out there and slamming shit and banging my head, and I learned a lot from her as well. She'd be like, no, this is a sensitive ballad, like, you can't fucking smash cymbals in the middle of the and I'm like, oh yeah, I know what you mean. So I learned,
don't wreck the vibe.
I learned a lot of not only how to play with a female front, or like a solo artist, or a chick that can go from full on double bass heavy metal to like a sensitive ballad that will bring tears to your eyes kind of thing. So again, boom, learning opportunity here, and really kind of, I dug that, and it was like a good thing for me to once again step in shit and be real lucky, but also to to further myself and to be away from that the fire that was the glam scene, or whatever, the 80s rock scene in America that was like burning as I flew to Germany.
Just getting away from it was when you, I mean, I don't know how long down the track it was when you were playing with Doro, but could you see this as like a long-term thing for that band? Like, I know with the previous bands that you'd been in, you're sort of in the moment and you're just taking advantage of whatever's in front of you. But was there, like, even from Doro, was there a feeling that this is just what it is and this is what it's always going to be, or this is going to be a long-term thing that we just keep working at? And could you see yourself being there for a long period of time, or were you just sort of, was it more of a case of later on down the track, 10 years down the track, you turned around and went, oh shit, I'm still here? And now being 25 odd years later on, you're still doing that.
Oh, totally, man. I mean, I don't think one fault of mine is I don't really I've never been like a plan guy, I kind of like lucked out and got into this shit, almost not by not trying, but it was like, holy fuck, like I'm in here now. Like, how do I, this is awesome, but how do I keep it going? So once it started, it was just like, okay, now I got to keep the momentum going. So it was like, World War III. Okay, next step, Wasted. Okay, next step, Britny Fox. Next, lily pad. Don't sink. Jump to that thing. And I did get lucky with her, and I don't think I ever could have even imagined that I would still be doing it, although I did think this has got to have a couple years in it. This is definitely like, she's big over here and she's filling these shows. She's got a record in the charts. Like, this is cool, but then we also didn't work that much at that time. It was literally like Germany, Switzerland and Austria, and then maybe like 2 shows in the UK, and we were done. I was like, okay, great. So I did have to also learn how to supplement my year with other gigs, and that's when I kind of started, doing some little multitasking, some studio stuff, some cover gigs, some other little projects and whatnot. But yeah, I never even would have thought, I didn't even know I'd be alive in 25 years, let alone be still playing with her.
Absolutely. And I think, I mean, we do hardly any touring whatsoever. And if we go out for more than a week, everyone's looking at each other going, oh, I never want to see your face again. This is enough. We do not have the tolerance for each other at times. But I mean, this has been your life for the majority of your life. And like, even now, and because I've had you on my radar for a while. I've got to speak to Johnny, and then I go, oh, no, he's on tour. Oh, I'll wait until his tour's over, and then I forget about it, and I go, oh shit, he's on another tour. Okay, I'll wait for the next one, and and it's just constant. And Doro seems to be touring more than ever now, and seems to be going really well. But I mean, how do you stop yourself from killing yourself or being killed on the road? I mean, are you pretty strict with your routines? Are you pretty disciplined, or are you just lucky?
I was for a while, and I've really this is again with an analogy. I look at it like, okay, so you left the cruise ship and now you're in a lifeboat, and you're kind of weighed down. So you're like, and that's me. Like, I've somehow sustained, but also made like huge sacrifices, and I feel like I keep tossing everything out of the boat, that's literally possible. And now I end up with like one fucking oar, but I'm still in this gig and I'm still fucking doing it, so it hasn't been easy. Yeah. And I gotta say, with Doro, like, the beginning was really great and everything was like just moving, and then there was like this super lull, like when she was doing the Love Me in Black album. I think that took like 3 years in between, the last gigs we did to the time that record was finished and came out. So, I had to, like I said, go kind of learn how to multitask a bit more and network and get myself working and whatnot. But, I guess I really think it changed dramatically. Like, it was like this middle ground, and then at this, and now on this end of it, like, we have a band that we all really get along, like the 4 guys in the band, as you witnessed when we toured together. Like, we were all, 20 of us in a fucking van together, all kind of laughing and just getting along and having a good time. And it's literally, I think those are the things that really keep you from wanting to stick somebody in the neck with a sharp object, just being around people that you're cool with, I've been in bands, and, I can say honestly, the Britny thing was never one where it was like, hey, you four guys want to all go out to eat together. Like, it was always an odd man out, or somebody fucking bitching about something, and like now we all kind of know our role, it's like her, and she's cool with all of us, and we get along great, and we hang out sometimes, but normally it's like the four guys in the band, and we just really kind of get along that well, that we hang out when we can, and it makes touring that much easier. And so I think it's a combination of things. You have to be blessed with some people that you really don't mind being around too long, and that makes it so much easier. I don't know that I could have been in this band for almost 25 years if Doro wasn't like one of the coolest people, in the music business, and B, that, there's guys in the band that, I spend the most time with that are actually like my brothers, so it's, I'm pretty fortunate in that sense.
I think, obviously Nick and yourself have been in there for years, and Nick's been in there a little bit longer than you, and then you've got Bass and Luke who have been in there for, getting closer to 10 years in the band.
Yeah, I think like Luca's 10 and Baz might be like 7 or 8 or something.
Yeah, so you're pretty solid as far as time together now, and I know you guys have had a few different people over the years as well, but it seems to be pretty stable and solid.
Yep.
Yeah, that's cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, it is.
One last thing. I've got two things before I wrap up, because I'm looking at the time. I read somewhere, and I never knew this, and I don't know whether there's any truth to it. Were you acting as a tour manager at one point for North American tours for the band?
I do, yeah.
I've done
I do, yeah. I do. I've done like the past 5 tours or something like that, and it just kind of started as, really trying to keep the budget down. We couldn't bring our German crew over, so we, and it was like, I don't know. I don't even remember if I volunteered myself or Doro kind of noticed that, I kind of run around kind of doing that stuff anyway or whatever. And that just kind of ended up being my other hat, so, which is cool. I don't mind doing it. It does run into, when it starts to affect the musical side of things, it can get a little crazy, but typically it works. And most importantly, like, she likes when I do it. So, that's kind of why it's stayed ongoing.
Oh man, I just, we're a pretty DIY band. So I think I'm in a similar position to you, where I think it's just not so much that anybody's put up their hand or said, you do this. It's just, well, Andy's doing all this, so he may as well just have that title and just keep doing what he's doing. And
cool.
I see that balance, that difficulty to balance between all the running around and coordinating everything, and getting on stage and actually playing the show and getting ready to do that side of things, like be the performer, be the musician on stage, as well as wearing that other hat as well. So, and I think, we're doing that on a relatively small scale in comparison, but I can only begin to imagine some of the challenges that you might have day to day when you're trekking around the North American market.
Yeah, it's definitely, when you're touring on a budget and you're also covering those kinds of miles and stuff like that, it can be pretty taxing on you, but it's cool if you can afford like a bus. Like, we've done a couple short runs in a van, or this last thing we did, these Warlock, Triumph and Agony shows, we actually flew every show. So it was like show, fly, show, fly, show, fly. And not that the flights were long. I mean, they were, literally, an hour or 2 or 3 at the most. But If you have bus tours are great because you can always like sneak away and cop a little power nap or something like that. But man, if you're just like out from the minute you stand up till the end of the gig, and then I got to get paid, I got to do this, I got to make sure the fans, meet and greet as she's signing, running around. But can definitely wear you down. But
and then you got to deal with TSA the next day.
Oh God, yeah. Well, luckily, that's when that's when I'm like, yes, we're in America, man. I've got global entry. Yes, I'm good to go. And then the rest of the band's back there. Help me! What happened? But
I love it. No, I saw that mentioned somewhere. And I thought, that's really fascinating because I wasn't aware that you sort of wore that other hat as well at times. And I'm fascinated with a lot of bands that are, I guess, multi-skilled and whether they've been forced to do so or not. But I think it's really interesting that some people have got to a point now where they can do a multitude of different things, and it's not just a case of, I wait till my cue and then I jump on the stage and play the set, and then I go off somewhere else. And
I mean, it's good and bad. I mean, it's like, I think if bands would have thought, more DIY, 30 years ago or more, they maybe wouldn't have, gone broke and whatnot, or saw a little bit more of what was kind of being done to them, business wise and stuff. But I mean, it's just, again, a product of the times. Back then, who the fuck wanted to tour manage, man? There was just too much, stuff to enjoy to be, to be worrying about any of that stuff. So, now it's kind of like everybody's sober, everybody's all business, counting their pennies and whatnot. And, so it's like it's almost like a given that you're going to be, putting on more than a few hats, Yeah. But, whatever works.
That's it, definitely. What's apart from the tour coming up next month through Europe, what else is on the cards for you?
Funny you should ask, being from down under. I have an In tribute band.
I was going to ask you about that, yeah.
Yeah, dude, it's so crazy, but it's so fucking fun. I mean, I really enjoy it a lot, and we're just starting to. It's been like 2 or 3 years that my buddy put this thing together, and it's finally starting to like pick up a little bit. Strange gig, strange band to be in a tribute. It's not like Kiss or something that I grew up on, but I just believe in these guys, and I love the music. I mean, I was a casual fan, and then learning like deeper cuts and stuff. I'm like, holy shit, man, what a great fucking band. What really, like, great writers, great stuff. I mean, just Hutchins as a front man, great, unbelievable charisma and voice. And now with the, the way the cards played out and him not being here, it's like, tribute bands are on the rise. And, for whatever reason and whatever it is, it's like the music is great and I just enjoy playing it. And I like the guys that I'm in a band with. And I think our singer's excellent. And so it's fun, man, and I'm kind of the guy that's like, a gig is a gig. And as long as I'm having fun and banging the drums, I can almost just, be cool with anything, Just like, oh yeah, another day and I'm playing music. That's a good day, But cool.
I think
fun thing.
I know that In Excess had some success in the States, and I hear people like reference them every once in a while as well. But I mean, they're gods here in Australia, and along with a whole bunch of other bands from that era here. But many of the bands that were huge in Australia around that time, and this is sort of looking at around mid to late 80s, and we had a completely different scene to what North America did. But a lot of those bands just did not translate over the pond like any other market. They just did not have any success. Some guys had a bit of success in Germany because the Germans seemed to be seem to like anything eclectic and a bit different. But but anywhere else, most bands just didn't have the success. And there's only a very small number, including NXS and I guess Midnight Oil as well, that that had a little bit of buzz in North America. So it's when I saw that you started playing with this tribute band, I thought, oh, that's interesting. It's who would have thought? It's just a weird concept that there'd be a tribute band for an Australian band in North America trekking around the place playing. So I thought that was pretty cool.
It is cool, but it's one of those, it's not your obvious choice as a tribute, but I think in that sense we have something a little bit, because it's not like, oh God, I got to play another whatever, what tribute is it going to Nirvana or something like I think it would be if it was a band that I had grown up on more and had played the songs a lot or heard them a billion times. I just don't know if it would work for me, but some reason this just kind of fell in my lap. And like I said, I'm been real good friends with the vocalist Corey Massey for years, and we had always wanted to get back into a band together, and then he threw this thing together. But it's wild, like even like you said, none of those bands really translated in America. And the more I dig into INXS history and learning different songs and whatnot, like their first top 5 hit in America was on their 4th or 5th record. And I mean, that shit just does not even compute in today's sort of business or the longevity of a band, that you could actually have had 5 albums out and still been going and actually getting bigger and bigger every time. I miss that about it, that bands can't have that sort of building, growing period, where they can really, really hone shit in. That band did not become as great as they were just sitting in a rehearsal room and going one day, oh, we got a record deal, now we're amazing. It's like they fucking honed that shit over years and making records and playing pubs and that's cool, man. I really dig the spirit of that, and I think that'll always kind of be inside all of us,
Yeah. Well, I think we had a similar situation to what a lot of your peers had in North America compared to Europe. So in Australia, we're so segregated from the rest of the world, and often we're either slow and too slow to pick up on whatever the trend is, or we're just so disconnected from the rest of the world that a lot of these guys cut their teeth and built success and fame here in Australia and never really thought about North America and whatnot because it was just too far away, it was too expensive.
Right.
And so it's like, why go somewhere else and cop a loss and cross your fingers that you're going to find some success somewhere when things are pretty good at home? And it was only, I think, later on down the track when you're getting around that time where some bands started to sniff the opportunity and then started taking that plunge, and some of them reasonably well. But for a long time there, it was like, well, things are good enough here, so we'll just we'll just stay in our little. I was going to use the word hole, but when right. But so it was a similar. I think just when you mentioned the thing before with a lot of the guys in North America not really thinking about Europe a great deal, it was probably a very similar thing to a lot of the dudes here. Yeah,
for sure.
So you got the NXS tribute band Kick and doing the European tour next month with Doro. I read also because Britny Fox has reunited about a year or two ago. Is there a new album being recorded or worked on?
Well, we reunited about 2 years ago, and that was with basically our Bite Down Hard lineup minus Michael Kelly Smith. So we had a new guitar player in there, and things were looking pretty good. It was like the best version of that band that we could get up and running at that time, and I really do feel that that there's an outlet for it, and there's still people that want to hear some of the songs that we were known for and whatnot. But unfortunately, again, like I mentioned earlier, the personalities and the kind of bullshit end of things didn't really gel, and had the best intentions, and we thought we were going to do a record. A few songs were tossed around. We did some cool gigs, and then kind of the thing just fell flat on its face again. So at this moment in time, it doesn't exist. And it's really, really a shame, because we, like I said, we did the Monsters of Rock cruise. We did M3 Festival. We did Hair Nation Festival in California. So, just, that band is its own worst enemy. It's just really, there's just for some reason, it just doesn't really, it's not an easy band to get up and doing things. And, that's just been proven again by it laying down like a tired dog, So I'm very, very sad about that and frustrated, but I'm also, again, happy and fortunate that I have other things to do and to, other outlets and stuff. I'm working on a tribute CD. As we all know, we've lost so many heroes over the last few years, and I'm trying to put together a little tribute CD of some of my favorite songs by, some of the classic artists like Bowie and Queen and whatnot. So I'm working on that slowly. I've got some drum tracks down, and I'm going to try and get some guests to play on it. So that might be something to look forward to down the road a little bit, and just keeping busy, with whatever I can.
That's it. Who knows what's going to be thrown in your lap?
Yeah, I might get another Doro Lord tour of Japan,
Make that happen. Well, it didn't work out last time we spoke a while back, and went to one of your henchmen, and we didn't get past him. So.
Oh God!
But that's the way the business works.
That's a bummer, man. I'm still bumming that we didn't get to go. Every time I go to Japan, it's like a curse. Like, you will not go back for whatever, 10 years or something. Come on, man.
We're having troubles getting back there as well, but that might be for.
Sorry to hear that.
Nah, all good. We'll get there eventually, but that might be a conversation for later, and we'll talk more.
Yeah, man. But, let's work on that.
Absolutely. Well,
cool.
Thank you so much. It's getting on your side of the pond, so I'll let you wind down and do what you need to do. But thanks so much for chewing the fat.
Yeah, Andy, appreciate it, man. Good to talk to you too.
Absolutely.
And catch up. Got to hear more about your end of the deal soon.
Yeah, we'll do. We'll speak soon.
All right.
Thanks, man.
Cool, buddy.
Take care.
All right, take care.
You too. Bye. There you go, folks. Episode 100 is in the bag. Thank you very much for listening. Hope you enjoyed that. And if you want to reach out to Johnny or check out any of the bands that he's been in, there's been quite a few, and anything that we spoke about in this episode, all the links and resources will be over at andysocial.net in the show notes. Very easy to find. This episode will be on the front page if you're listening this week. Otherwise, if you're listening in the months and years to come, just click on the podcast section and you'll be able to scroll down to episode 100. 100. Amazing. And everything will be in there. I'll try and find some really cool videos from days gone by off YouTube and chuck them into the show notes as well. So hopefully I can find some really cool stuff, and no doubt you guys will get a kick out of some of the things that Johnny's been involved with over the years and what he is doing now as well. So really, really cool. Great chat. Awesome guy. You get the picture. So before we wrap up episode 100, I wonder how many times I can say 100. Is anyone counting? 100, 100, 100, 100. Before we wrap up episode 100, there are a few ways that you can support this podcast if you feel that you would wish to do something more than listening to this episode. And thank you very much, because that's all you really need to do. But if you want to do something more, get on social media, all the different platforms, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. I'm even whoring myself out on LinkedIn. Who would have thought? Everything's on these social media platforms. Get on there, like, retweet, love heart, comment, tag. all those little things, they go a long way to beat those horrible algorithms of these social media platforms. If you want to do anything more on top of that, we have the Amazon portal over at andysocial.net. So if you shop on Amazon, click on my portal link first on the andysocial.net website, and that will take you through to Amazon, and then forget about it. Just keep shopping as per normal. And then in the background, mixed in with all that programming code, I get a little cut of what you're buying. But don't worry, if you're buying anything suspicious, I won't know about it. So don't stress if you're going to buy something a little bit naughty. But anyway, moving along. The last thing is paypal.me. If you want to sling me, I'm saying it again. If you want to sling me 50 cents or $1 or whatever it might be, you can do so via the paypal.me button over at andysocial.net. So you can go and check that out if you feel that you want to give me something. I don't ask for money, but I figured that if the option's there, then people can use that if they feel necessary. But anything that I do get, and I do get a few little gifts every once in a while. Thank you very much. The money that I do get from this podcast just goes to keeping this podcast afloat each month. So hosting fees, gear, getting around sometimes as well and chatting to all these different people. The money that does come in does help support that and keep it going. So thank you so much for those people that do gift me with little presents of dollars and cents every once in a while. It's very, very cool. But enough of me. That's it. Thank you so much. Episode 100. It's been amazing. This podcast is bigger than ever. It's getting better and better each and every week. Amazing guests, and I've got a hell of a lot coming up. I have so much coming up, it's not funny. So a lot of surprises that are in store. I'm going to let you guys know as they come to light, and lots of cool guests in the pipeline. A lot of people I'm working on. It's a long game here. It's a long-term game. So I've really got to stroke the ego and gently warm, or have these people warm to me. But we'll get there. Trust me. So lots of cool stuff coming up. Enough of me. All right, guys, next week. Ta-ta.